Welcome to the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, Perek Nun Daled, one of the Haftorahs that we read twice a year, actually. And I will confess, I don't make this confession often, but this is definitely my favorite chapter. Beautiful. Here we go. Perek Nun Daled, Pasuk Aleph. Roni Akara lo yalada. Rejoice, Jerusalem. Well, first of all, literally, Akara is a barren woman who cannot have children. So this is it's a metaphor referring to Jerusalem because it's bereft of its children who went into exile. Roni Akara lo yalada. Rejoice, this barren woman who never had children. Pitzchi rina v'tzahali. Open up your mouth in song and celebrate. Lo chala. You who have never had children. Ki rabim b'nei shomema mibnei be'ula amar Hashem. Because there will be many more children of the desolate woman than the one who is married. Meaning to say, Jerusalem, who's been completely desolate, will have more children, and in metaphorically and literally, will have many more children than the other cities who have been settled for many years. Harchivi mekom ohalech. Expand the place of your tents, v'yiriyot mishkonotayich yatu al tachsochi, and the ropes that hold the tent. You ever see a tent being set up? You have pegs and you have these ropes. So make sure you stretch out the cloth, the material of your tent, and don't hold back. Ha'arichi meitaraich, make your ropes of the tent longer. V'tedotai chazaki, and make the pegs harder. So it's a metaphor, but it's saying basically Jerusalem is going to become bigger, which was unthinkable at some points in history. Ki yamin u'smol tifrotzi, because you will continue to expand right and left. Rashi says this is referring to the enemies, the Kasdim, the Babylonians. V'zarech goyim yirash, and your offspring will defeat nations. Ve'arim neshamot yoshivu. I'm sorry, goyim yirash is really not defeat nation as much as they'll inherit the place where nations live. Ve'arim neshamot yoshivu, and your descendants, Jerusalem, are going to settle completely desolate and empty cities. Al tir'i ki lo tevoshi, don't be afraid, you will no longer be ashamed, you won't feel ashamed as you have felt when you have gone into exile. Ve'al tikalmi ki lo tachpiri, don't feel any shame, because again, it's kind of a it's a pun, where in Hebrew you have two words for these things. So al tir'i, don't be afraid, ki lo tevoshi, because you won't be embarrassed. Ve'al tikalmi, don't be afraid to pick up your head and show yourself with pride, ki lo tachpiri, because you are not going to have to go into exile again. Ki boshet alumayich tishkachi, because you are going to forget the shame of your youth. V'cherpat almenutayich lo tizkeri od, and the shame and disgrace of the time you've been a widow, meaning the time that you've been like a king without a spouse. It says like a king who didn't have a wife. You won't remember this anymore. Lo tizkeri od, you will no longer remember this time of your being a widow. Ki bo'alayich osayich Hashem tzevakot shemo v'go'alech kedosh Yisrael, because your master, which is Hashem, your sort of, so to speak, first husband, he is going to, that is Hashem, and he who redeems you is the Holy One of Israel. And what about him? Elokei kol ha'aretz yikare, he will be referred to as God of the entire land. Ki ke'isha, now we're continuing with the metaphor of Jerusalem as this disgraced city who's been abandoned by its husband. Ki ke'isha azuva v'atzuvat ruach kera'ach Hashem, because Hashem has regarded you, has called you to return like the wife of someone whose husband kind of left her. So sometimes if a husband leaves a wife and she's downtrodden and she's sad, he'll call her back. That's how Hashem calls back Bnei Yisrael. Ki ke'isha azuva v'atzuvat ruach kera'ach Hashem. You are going to be called by Hashem like that same woman who has been somewhat left by her husband and she's all sad. Ve'eshet nimurim ki timayes amar Elokaich. And just like a wife of a young husband who is young and they get into these fights when they're young, so too, but eventually they always make up. So ve'eshet nimurim ki timayes amar Elokaich. You too are just like a husband who married his wife when they were young, meaning what they call today high school sweethearts, where even if they have a fight, you know with certainty they're going to get back together again. So too, that's your relationship with God. Do you think someone who's a Eshet Neurim, someone who's a high school sweetheart, do you think they ever actually break up? No, they always find a way to come back to each other. Now, very, very famous, very beautiful pasuk. Berega katon azavtich. I have left you for just a small moment. Uverachamim gedolim akavtzech. But with great mercy, I will gather you. So Hashem is saying, I have left you like that for just a bit, but don't worry, the return that you're going to get, the amount of time I'll spend with you when you come back, is going to be with great mercy. B'shetzef ketzef histarti panai rega mimech. With great anger, the kind of anger you see when the sea, if you ever see the ocean, wash its very, very ferocious waves against a wave breaker, against rock. You ever see the waves go on the rock and the white bubbles that come out from that powerful impact of the water against the rock? That is the shetzef ketzef, that is the bubbles. B'shetzef ketzef histarti panai rega mimich. With this great ferocity, I have hid my face from you, God says, for just a minute. Uvechesed olam richamtich. But with eternal kindness, I will have mercy for you. Amar goalech Hashem, says your Redeemer Hashem. Now we're referring to the story of Noach and the great flood. Kimei Noach zotli asher nishbati. Remember in the water bubbles that I mentioned before, it's like reminds me of the same water that we had in the time of Noach, where God swore to Noach that the world will not be destroyed again. Kimei Noach zotli asher nishbati me'avor mei Noach od al haaretz ken nishbati mikzof alayich u'migeor bach. Just like I have sworn to Noach that I will never ever again destroy the world, so too I have sworn now that I will never again be so angry at you. Very, very beautiful pasuk. Ki haharim yamushu v'hagvaot temutena. The mountains will move from their place and the big hills are going to collapse before the next thing happens. V'chazdi meitech lo yamush. And my kindness and goodness to you will not be removed. Uvrit shlomi lo tamut. And the covenant of my peace is not going to collapse. Amar Mech Hashem said, you're the one who has mercy for you, Hashem. So just like the mountains are not going to collapse, so too I will not abandon you. Or the mountains and hills are going to sooner collapse than I will abandon you, because my covenant of peace is with you. The next pasuk Yudalef, is actually it's the beginning of a new haftorah, Aniyah so'ara lo nuchama. Wow. It's actually the one we read after Shabbat Nachamu, which is read right after Tisha B'Av. And so we say here that with everything that God does to try and comfort the Jewish people, Aniyah so'ara lo nuchama, the poor and very, not shaken, but very emotional woman has accepted no comfort. Now, it's important to note that there's all these metaphors and homiletical speeches they give about this pasuk, saying basically the Jewish people refuse to take comfort. But the basic literal translation that we're trying to always make sure we do here is just a reference. It's a title. It's not an actual description of an action, but it's just a title. Aniyah so'ara lo nuchama. So that's all the name of the Jewish people. Aniyah so'ara lo nuchama. You, emotional, poor woman who has never been comforted, I am going to put the stones that you have, I will put and make sure that it's going to be very, very, very beautiful. You ever see those beautiful marble floors? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay down the stones. I'm going to put color on your beautiful marble. And your foundations are going to be made out of sapphires, which it's very, very expensive. When you buy a sapphire this big, it's tens of thousands of dollars. Here we're talking about all your foundations are going to be made out of sapphire, and now we're going to mention other kinds of precious stones. V'samti kadchod shimshotaich, I will put your windows, the window openings like this beautiful, beautiful stone. V'she'arayich le'avnei ekdach, and your gates are going to be like stones. That, by the way, it's interesting. The word ekdach is referring to also a very special type of stone, but there's a whole discussion because Eliezer ben Yehuda, when he read this, used this word for a pistol. That's the modern Hebrew word for pistol. Usharayich lavnei ekdach v'chol gevulech lavnei chefetz, and all of your borders are going to be made out of precious stone. V'chol banaich limudei Hashem, all of your children are going to be scholars and knowing of God. V'rav shalom banaich, and there will be an abundance of peace among your sons. Bitzdakati konani, you will be established through charity. Rachakim me'oshek, stay away from stealing, stay away from taking from people what is theirs. Kiloti rai, you will not have to fear. Umimchita kiloti krav, and from a frightening thing, don't worry because it's not going to come close to you. Hen gor yagur efes meoti, migar itach alaych ipol. The word lagur, sometimes it means to live and dwell, but in this case, it means to be afraid, like lo taguru. And gor yagur efes meoti. The person who should be afraid is the one who is bereft of me, the one who does not have God with him. Migar itach alayich yipol. Who is the one who's afraid? Again, hen gor yagur efes meoti. The person who should be afraid is the one who is bereft of God. Migar itach, and whoever it is that tried to, this is a different type of word gar. It's someone who tried to scare you. Scare you and cause war with you, like the word lahid garot. Migar itach alayich yipol. Whoever is fighting with you is going to be falling to your feet and surrender to you. Very beautiful metaphor right here in Pasuk Tetzayin. Hinei anochi barati charash nofech ve'esh pecham. I have created a blacksmith who is able to blow. And you know how the blacksmiths have this thing that they do to generate heat, where they blow on the fire and the fire heats up. Nofech be'esh pecham. He is blowing on the fire of the coal. Umotzi kli l'maseu, and then he creates a tool, a vessel to be used. V'anochi barati mashchit lechabel. I have created a destroyer who will cause absolute destruction, meaning I am the one who causes the people who fight against Bnei Israel to fight against them. However, Pasuk Yud Zayin, very, very famous Pasuk, Kol kili yutzar alayich lo yitzlach. Any tool that is going to be crafted against you will not succeed. In other words, any nation that dedicates itself to rise against you will not succeed. V'chol lashon takum mitach lamishpat tarshi. Any single nation, lashon, tongue, nation that comes to justice against you, to trial against you, to litigate against you, tarshi, you will end up indicting them. Zot nachalat avdei Hashem, that is the portion of the servants of God, v'tzidkatam meitinu Hashem, and their righteousness from me. So basically, any vessel that is crafted against you will not succeed. That is my share, says Hashem. That has been Pasuk Yud Zayin, which has two haftarahs. Stay tuned with us for Nun. That's been Nun Daled. Sorry, stay with us for Nun Hey. Very famous, very beautiful pasuk. Thank you for listening.